Man, how's your day?
How's my day? My day's been it's been cool, man. It's like the last day of term officially,
Yeah.
and just kind of slowly unwinding. But I've still got a lot of work to do. But I'm not gonna bore you with that. But before I tell you about my day and my week, everyone, let's give a little happy birthday to Saladin. It was Saladin's birthday yesterday.
Hey.
But yeah, man. How's your day been? How's your week
Yeah,
been?
man, it's been good. I was in London yesterday.
Nice.
I was at my old sixth form. Big up William Morris. And I came back today. I had a supervision,
Mm.
taught supervision, and then came back here and just finishing work. Man.
But it's after work time now.
It's after work, bro. So it's
This
only
is what we
right.
do after work.
It's only right. Yeah, we got a very special individual in the room today.
Very special, very special. We're gonna let him introduce himself. Please do.
I'm Puria Radmad. Oh, apologies. Hi guys. I'm Puria. I'm a second year engineering undergrad at Trinity College
Mhm.
here at Cambridge. I've been invited to speak.
Me and Saladin have been talking about your name for a while now. We've been like, we need to get Puria in here ASAP. And
No
you're a busy guy.
pressure
You're a busy guy, so we brought you in, man. It's
Yeah,
good to
man. Yeah, we invite a lot of busy people in. We're very fortunate to have them come through to the humble abode. Puria, tell me about young Puria. What we like.
The change between primary school and secondary school for me, the reason why we settled in South Manchester was because
Yeah.
my dad passed away when we were living in Bishop Stortford,
Okay.
which is actually nearby to Cambridge. So my dad passed away and we had to live with my uncle, who also lived in like south area of Manchester, and he still his family still lives close by. So we had to settle with them. So it was a lot more like relaxed. We lived in the same flat. We lived on the same floor of flats as them. So it was like like a much more sense of community. You know, there was another Radmard family living right next door. Honestly, I don't remember much about like moving into year six. Moving into year six was like quite calm for me. I remember the first day I got in, I remember because I've always been sort of like on the shorter side. Year five, I was year six, and year five comes up to me and says like, you can't be year six. He's really trying to start a fight. So I go home and I'm like, I'm not going back to that school. I'm not going back to that school. But obviously I do go back. And no, I enjoyed year six, and then moving into year seven, because I went to a grammar school in my area, so I had to take the 11 plus to get in. I was so gassed that I got in. I want to say I got quite well. I might have to check that with my mum as well. But just take it as I did quite well. For that 11 plus, so I was happy to get in.
What did it mean to you to get into a grammar school? Why was that something you kind of felt a sense of accomplishment about achieving?
Well, first, like mechanically, because a lot of the kids in the area had been like going to 11 plus school, like training for ages, for like years, and I'd just moved into the area. Like you take your 11 plus in early year six, so I'd been in like South Manchester for like a month or two, and I'd taken a crash course for a month, and I'd gotten in. And a lot of these kids had been going to like special, tutors for ages. So I was really happy about that. My mum let me know about that. It wouldn't have meant a lot to me just going off like my experience, but obviously my mum let me know about that, and I was quite happy about that. Then obviously it was like, obviously with a fresh memory of my like family and my dad and all that. So I was quite happy to make him proud. My mum was always the academic, but I was still happy to be like to be taken it on.
What was your dad's view to you and education and doing well in school, etc.?
My dad wanted me to be balanced, because my mum was always teaching me maths. So she's a mathematician. She did her first degree in Iran. She did it in graph theory. So like graphs, not in terms of like plotting graphs. It's a different branch of like new mathematics. A lot less. I want to say a lot less numbers. A lot more like proving networks and stuff. And then she did her second degree in Sheffield. In statistics, which she's still working as a statistician. So she taught me a lot of maths. But my dad being a surgeon, for the like jaw area, because he came from dentistry, he wanted me to be a lot more balanced. So he showed me like David Attenborough documentaries. It was still sciencey, and you couldn't get me off science. I was always a sciencey kid. You couldn't get me off science, but he didn't want me to go like hard maths like my mum, because sometimes when you build someone up for that, they can't do a lot else. So he showed me documentaries. I want to think like he'd show me like politics documentaries as well. He'd get me into like, he'd show me like videos from back home. He'd show me like a broad range of things that just meant that maybe that's actually an attribute of why I like pick stuff up so fast and drop them.
That's what's on my mind right now. Like, there's a reputation, you know what I mean, for STEM subjects, for students that do STEM subjects or maths in particular, and you're very much the opposite of that stereotype in terms of your broad array of interests. Like, you can sit down and have a conversation about politics just as well as someone that does politics, and that's like a really valuable skill to have. And it's something that you pick up straight away when you speak to you.
Thank you.
100%.
Yeah. Do you mind talking a bit about that kind of process of grief that you felt at such a young age? Because I can't imagine how that would have felt. Because I grew up in a single parent family as well, but my dad was never present, so I'd never had an experience of someone being removed from my life that so abruptly. So I don't know how was that experience for you at such a young age?
It wasn't pretty. Like I still sort of do remember like my mum telling me, because me and my sister came home from school and my mum was sat on the table, just got off a phone call. I'm making it sound really dramatic, but I'm literally just describing the events. But like my mum got off the phone call and she was like, have a seat. Like, I've invited your uncles from Germany, your uncle from living in South. This is when we were living in Bishop Stortford nearby here. I've invited your uncle who lives up north near Manchester to come down. We're all going to get together as a family because your dad was swimming this morning. He loves swimming. He'd swim like tens of laps every morning because what ended in was like a cholesterol issue. So he'd swim to make sure that was balanced. But he was swimming this morning and he had a heart attack and he's in the hospital and we don't know how he's going to do. So I didn't process this the whole time. So we had my uncles from Germany. It was actually uncles on my mum's side. And when I say uncles, I mean like obviously like someone's second cousin, whatever. They were on my mum's side, but they really liked my dad. And they also were the closest people because they lived in Germany. So they came over. My dad's brother from where I live now came over. And we all visited him in the hospital. And we all like took turns. And what my mum told me was that like he could still hear us even though he's not responding. So I was just telling him like normal stuff, like how my day was and all that. I didn't process it until a while later, until my mum said that, some people go and don't come back. That was when I was crying. I was crying for days. I actually remember this. I was like, it was really bad. I started crying straight away and I couldn't come out of my room for days.
And you had a younger sister, did you say?
I had a younger sister. She was 5, and I feel like it didn't process with her until later. I feel like that was more dangerous because later on she had, I want to say, a lot worse symptoms than me, and I feel like it's because she didn't process it at that time, and she didn't have that I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I think it's because she didn't have that intense period where she was just like thinking about it, that it came back to her with a lot worse symptoms later on.
The fact that you had to navigate such a difficult thing at such a young age, I'm really interested in how that transformed your outlook on life or your outlook on education in particular. Like, did you feel like an increase in pressure to do well and to support your family?
Yeah. Short answer, yeah, definitely. And especially coming from like when we visited home, Iran, a big thing that my like grandmas especially would say to me is like, you're the man of the house now. Like, you're the man of the house. It didn't like, obviously my mum's like very much supportive. She wasn't like gonna leave me to myself and all. So I never felt that for myself. But my family were always telling me like, you're the man of the house now. So that did sort of get to me eventually. And I was like, okay, I can't directly help my mum now. I can't make money for myself now because that's just not where my expertise are at the moment. But I can stay in school. I can really try. Like I said, I did a month's training for 11 plus, not to brag. I did a month's training for 11 plus and got in. I didn't want to lose that momentum. I knew that was like that was sort of my calling. So I really tried. And then obviously when I learned that Cambridge was sort of within reach and I understood the implications of that, because I was planning to go to like I think my top 2 choices were Durham for geology, like earth sciences, and I think Southampton because I did a summer school there. But like when it hit me that like the implications of what Cambridge could mean and like the fact that it was within reach, I was locking myself in my room. I really was locking myself in my room like days on end. I'd go to school, come back, and I'd just work. And my mum was okay with it. Like she'd tell me not to overwork and all that, but she'd be the one bringing me through like this. You know, like,
Start getting flashbacks.
I'm glad we're passing on continuing the tradition, bro.
Nah, but on a roll, okay, you're talking about A-level time now, right? You kind of skipped straight to sixth form. Nah, go put it back in your lap, boy. But yeah, how healthy was that? You know what I mean? Because obviously you achieved your intended goal. So, but I'm still interested to hear how healthy was that time period? Where was your mental health during all of this?
Yeah.
Like, just talk us through that experience.
So mental health became an issue for me in secondary school, not in sixth form as much. Because I went to like child grief counselling and all that. That's quite standard stuff. But what I'd say I'd faltered most from like locking myself in my room, so to speak, was from the fact that I didn't really do a lot outside of that. I got my grades and I got my interview well, but I didn't really use my opportunities well outside of that. I didn't really like set up projects with my friends or like do anything big like that. And then you see some people coming out and they're like, oh, I started a band when I was in school. Do you know what I mean? Or like, oh, I did this competition. I joined this, like, I don't know, I wrote a book or something when I was in school. I didn't really have that. Plus the fact that I was like picking something up, really enthusiastic about it and then dropping it a week later. Like that sort of attitude didn't add up well. And you mentioned at the start, like, talk about any regrets you have if you want to. That's my number one regret, that those two attitudes of like really, really like, for like the one thing that I didn't falter in terms of my passions was like working hard to get where I wanted to be academically. And then the fact that like I'd faltered, those two mindsets combined, and I came into uni with like not a lot besides my grades. That's why I'd say that wasn't healthy, because I didn't really develop as a person for those 3 years.
I think that's a powerful like realization in
Definitely.
that you put that standard or criteria for yourself and you kind of acknowledge that and go into uni wanting to do that. And I think just that the fact that you sort of understand and you want to improve in that regard is I mean, as far as I'm aware or concerned, that's sick in itself.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Shows a lot of self-awareness. So since you've started Cambridge, have you made like an active effort? I know you have because I see what you do on Facebook, etc. But like, talk us through your journey since starting Cambridge.
Yeah. All right. So, like, first year was a lot of like sort of environmental stuff, the stuff that sort of like campaigning and stuff like that within my college throughout like uni and stuff like that.
Where did your passion for climate activism come from?
It's sorry, it's what I actually applied to uni with. I applied to because the engineering course here is general, so you just apply for engineering. But everywhere else, I applied for civil and sustainable. So things like water purification or like water irrigation systems. I've my passion for climate science has sort of been linked with my interest in like international development. Sort of always been aware of like globally the differences, obviously, and obviously coming from like Iran, where when you drive through the countryside and you see like this, like the city's not so bad. Come visit Iran. It's not so bad. But when you drive between the cities, like we did a couple of times, you see like the state of what it's like. And those two have always been linked. So like getting countries together in a way that's sustainable, both in the social, economic, environmental sense, all this. So that's where engineering like played a part for me, because it could use my scientific side for this sort of thing. So that's really where my my passion for climate engineering came together. And then in uni it really developed into what it is. But in terms of like what I've done to reform that mindset, I mentioned before that you've caught me at a good time. It's because in this last 2 weeks, this is like the first time that's really ramped up for me. Because last year I was always happy to call my lot. I was always happy to just be like, I'm not looking for anything else. I'm happy with the extracurricular stuff I'm doing. It's actually embarrassingly late, to be honest. For second year, like end of fourth term here, I'm starting to realize what am I doing? Like, I'm in the city, which will give me the best opportunities. Like, being realistic, what am I doing while I'm here? Am I gonna once again lock myself away to work, or can I just lack a little bit in my supervisions for now, and then do more work in the Christmas holidays, where like I have a lot more time and I'm like a bit more isolated in the sense of not a lot of people around me, or do I really just like pick up every opportunity I can? I've literally been like a yes man. Like if someone gives me an opportunity, I don't even care about my workload. Like thinking about some of the things I've said yes to now, I'm now. Okay, I don't want to give too many details away because you'll find out about them as they actually resolve.
Like that.
But some of the I've just been like given a lot of opportunities, and I'm very thankful for the people that I've been in contact with to give me these opportunities. And I think that where I have been able to, I've passed up on them and given them to someone else. Like, because if all goes well, I have too much on my plate already, which is better than not having enough. You know what I mean?
100%.
So,
where did that realization come from?
it came from hanging out with the right people, changing up the people you hang out with. So when you go into lectures every day, I guarantee. Well, okay, maybe it's you guys for your lectures, but I guarantee there's someone there who's doing more than you. Do you know what I mean? And hanging out with that person, I can name that person if you want now. Hanging out with that person will always get you in a better place.
Name them.
Name them.
So I can't actually pronounce her second name, but this girl called Shay in engineering department. She's I want to say first generation immigrant from Nigeria. She is doing the most. That's number one thing. Number one metric, if you look at her Google calendars, you won't find, she doesn't sleep, is what I'm trying to say. She doesn't sleep. It's amazing. I think, honestly, get her on this next time. It's amazing what she does. So just hanging out with the right people, talking like about the right things can get you a lot of places. And I honestly, like, I hope it's not too late for me to break into that sort of mindset, having like sort of faltered a year in this sort of process.
Like,
for me, I would just put it down to being curious, because I think being curious and being brave, because I think a lot of people have one, but they don't necessarily have the other. I think sometimes if you're curious, it's good because it means you have a lot of ideas
and you can detect opportunities.
Yeah, you can detect opportunities, exactly. But it doesn't necessarily mean you'll go for it. So you'll be like, oh, I have this sick idea, man. Trust me, I'm going to do it one day. I'm going to do it. But you never end up doing it, right? And then just being brave completely, that can lead to like having no balance in terms of you can't detect the right opportunities, or you're just kind of just doing things. But I think for
without
me,
fulfilling them properly, and like actually getting the use out of them.
100%. So I think for me, that's what I'll put it down.
So my question for both of you is, let's say you were speaking to a younger student or anyone really, because like I know adults that have this problem, which are curious but not brave, or like are very risk averse. What would you say to them? Like, how would you passionately articulate to them the benefits of kind of just going with it and just taking the first step? Like, what would you say to yourself, your first year self, to really get you moving?
First yourself. So risk aversion is a good thing that you say. Risk aversion, definitely, because the engineering department's full of societies, and I was scared that I'd join one and I'd put in time and I'd realize I don't like it. Just do it, just to be honest, because it will pay. Sorry, it'll pay off. It will pay off. Don't be worried. Don't be worried that you'll. I know it sounds cheesy, but just like go for it. And the regret of not doing something is more than the regret of putting time in and realizing you don't like it, basically. Just go for it, basically.
I think it's a famous saying, isn't it? Like, I remember there was like a study done to where some sort of academic asked a bunch of old people that were on the verge of like passing away, like, what's your biggest regret? And it's the things that I didn't do, not the things that I did do, that are my biggest regrets.
No one says I wish I spent more time in the office.
Exactly.
Just go out there and just do like non-standard stuff. Do you know what I mean?
100%,
What's your experiences of doing non-standard stuff, Saturday? Because you're the most non-standard person I know. So tell the crowd.
I think in terms of taking a leaf out of what Puria said, in terms of, I would just say, don't be afraid of things turning out terrible. It doesn't matter if you go to like taking your example of a society and it's just dead. Alright, cool, it's dead. What can you do about it?
No one's gonna know.
Exactly. You just go and you learn and you discover it. And I think that kind of the bravery side of things, of not caring about something fails, is I think the most important thing, because oftentimes when you have ideas and you're really curious, you can romanticize things and you can have a very idealistic vision of how things are going to turn out. And part of not committing is that fear of it will never be as good, or I don't have all of the resources that I need to put together to make it what I want to be. So I'll give it a couple months. In a week I'll be ready. In a year I'll be ready, etc., etc. But I think for me the biggest thing is to just get started.
Or thinking that there'll be someone there that's better than you, or it won't be your thing. So one thing that looking back was like sort of in my mindset is that if I do this, it won't be my thing, so it doesn't matter, because this guy's better than coding at me, so why am I even bothered? It's not, I'm not going to be the coding guy, so why try? Do you know what I mean?
I feel like it's a fundamental life skill of just having perspective, and just like, I'm reading a book right now called Flow. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's just about the key to success and happiness, and just always being in like that flow state when you really feel like you're doing something exciting and you're actually contributing to something, like that really contentment that you get. And what the author says is the key to successful happiness is just an ability to put external circumstances in perspective, essentially. So no matter what's happening on the outside, no matter the situation or the circumstance, it's just really about using it's essentially just seeing the good in everything, and just like taking the lesson from all negative situations. It's easier said than done, but it comes with practice in my experience.
I was asked this by a friend of mine, Adam, who on the way back from lectures he asked me, so what do you want to get out of this place? What when you leave here and you've got that white fluffy gown on, what do you want to say? Right, I got out of this place.
I've never really thought about that, and I probably should have, but I never really thought about that. It's always sort of been for me more about like what I'm gonna do afterwards, sort of thing. I know what I want to do afterwards. I don't really know what I want to get out of here. First, like, I suppose like it's to know the right people to do what I want to do afterwards. To be in a comfortable position where I'm confident, even if that old mindset starts creeping back in, I'm still confident that what I'm about to do is bad. So I mean that's why I want to get out, and obviously I want my first, like I want my
of course,
or 2-1 or whatever I get. That's what I want.
Yeah, 100%, man.
What does it mean to be confident?
It means that like I said, you don't worry if something comes out bad, or if your mindset comes out bad at the end of it, in terms of like how you enjoy something, because you just do it anyway. Or like a lot of people think it's about, or a lot of people say it's about not thinking what others think of you when you're confident. But honestly, I think it's more about like, how do you feel about what you're about to do? If you're confident in what you're about to do, then you're like, I don't know, it's just better. It's just better.
100%. What do you want to get out of this place, Suleiman?
What do I want to get? Similar type of vibe to you, bro. I mean, obviously you have access to so many resources at Cambridge or at any other university or any place of learning, any institution. In terms of like intangible and simple terms, I have a library like 20 meters away from where I live. 100 meters from where I live. I really want to be able to access that knowledge, and more than just the books, I want to access that knowledge from the people that I meet, because we've asked our guests a number of times, like, what's the best thing about this place? And Saladin will definitely echo that it's the people, right? It's the people that you meet, and it's the conversations you have. So I just want to make sure that I've opened myself up to meet as many people as possible, and just not shut down any potential interactions by prejudice or by just not being confident to enter different spaces, essentially. Yeah,
because it's a mindset sometimes when you're like looking to come into uni, where you're looking for like some sort of internship or like I don't know what you guys did before you came to uni, but I was always looking for like corporate internships and stuff like that. So it's like it's a common thing to just think that you're looking up while you're here, you're looking up to like where you can work next. But realistically, the people like are all around you that you're going to be working with next.
100%.
I could be working for you guys next.
Impossible.
That's not happening.
I remember I had a chat with a friend of mine, Dammit, and we spoke about this idea of endlessly chasing things. And the idea that even when you get to this place, Cambridge, and you mentioned that you lock yourself in your room and you work really hard for this, and it must have been a place where like you're checking a website every day, whatever it is, and you just really idealize it. But when you get here, it's like on to the next. What's corporate? You get me? It's normal. Just big grand halls and chambers and everything, and then you just kind of think of the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's just really powerful. And you mentioned that flow state, and it's just being able to sort of take things in and just be in the moment and not
be present.
constantly think about that next thing. Because I mean, just learning from all of our experiences, we know that when we get here, you no longer are checking the websites every day or just in dream world.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
realize this is just the real world. And so it would be foolish of any of us, just having gone through the experience, to put another thing now in the same place as Cambridge, because we know
Yeah.
it's going to come up with the same results, right?
And I think it is that flow-like state, and actually, it's about like not just listing off the things that you want to do,
Yeah.
which is why I'm saying like these 2 weeks are just like this is just me listing off the things I want to do. What comes next is like years, like there are years, and those are like every day you've got to be up, you've got to be working on it.
Yeah.
You can't just like obviously coming into Cambridge, like locking myself in my room, that was one thing to work towards. But in real life, you just got to be working for everything you want to be doing. You can't just say like, I want to do this, and then the next day, you know.
Yeah.
And the awesome thing about your aspirations, in my opinion, is the fact that they're very altruistic in terms of international development, in terms of sustainability. Like another quote that had a lot of value for me from that book was,
So it's flow, sorry.
Flow,
Yeah.
was success or happiness is the side effect of dedicating yourself to a course that is more than you, if that makes sense. That is, you're dedicating yourself to contribute to a cause that is more than you.
Yeah.
It's something that's more than you. That's like, I mean, you're just a minor part of that movement, of that cause. And yeah, and it just it's something that definitely resonated with me. I'm really interested to hear your opinion about, like, because you said that you were initially thinking about going corporate. So this is something that me and Sad talk about often. I'm really interested in hearing your opinion on going corporate, and whether you're a sellout if you do go corporate.
Yeah.
Like, what's your thoughts on that topic?
So with an engineering firm, sometimes the best, like if you're interested in a particular sector of engineering, you've got no choice but to go corporate. Realistically, like if you're interested in designing planes, there's no small plane companies, you know what I mean? You got to be working for some of like the big ones. There's no like small car companies. Similarly, like if you want to go into racing, realistically, you can't be doing go-karting for a living. Really, like yeah, you could be, but you know what I mean. Unless you have some like startup idea, which is like insane. And similar a lot of different things. Sustainable energy, for example. Realistically, it's the big firms, or you do like international development and stuff like that. So I have empathy for people who do go corporate within engineering, but then there's a lot of people in engineering who use their degree to go into finance and stuff like that. And sure. Obviously, you know that a lot of my work is about like the adverse effects of the financial sector, and especially like this university's involvement with that. So it's harder for me to find like the interest that people have, because like obviously you got, like you say, happiness is a side effect of putting something in that's bigger than you. So I suppose if you honestly think that your corporate job is doing something for the wider world around you, then yeah, sure, I can put myself in your shoes. But if you're going into work every day and you're just thinking of salary, and you're not thinking of your effects on the world, I don't really have a lot of empathy with you, realistically. It's kind of mean to say, because obviously a lot of people are like looking out for themselves, and obviously that has to be done in certain circumstances. But people who come here who don't need the salary, but then they don't use their position as someone who doesn't need the salary, you know what I mean, to not put in the effort. I don't have a lot of empathy with that, to be honest. That's my stark answer.
Why is climate? Why is appreciating what's going on in the climate important in the world?
Why isn't it important? It's the number one thing, and I fear the problem is that a lot of young people right now aren't connecting with it because A, it's not immediate, and B, it's not poetic. Do you know what I mean? It's poetic to talk about, and obviously these are all issues that I support. Obviously, like it's poetic to talk about access work, like looking at you guys, like looking at what you're doing now. It's poetic to talk about access work. It's poetic to talk about like issues with ethnicity and stuff like that, or like sexism. And these are all issues that like fall under the bracket of sustainable development as well, obviously. But it's not that poetic to talk about climate change or
Fossil
like
fuels.
fossil fuels. You know, it's not. It doesn't really come to mind. What I wish people knew is that it's sort of, with fossil fuels especially, it's a lot more direct. It's not just the climate. There's a lot of like linkage between the social injustice that's happening and like the climate injustice that's happening right now.
A question that's been on my mind for a while. Like, I was listening to a podcast this like just before your interview in preparation for this kind of climate change discussion, and one of the questions that was drawn up was, does climate activism have a privilege problem? I'm really interested to hear your opinion on that question.
Yeah, it does. Because, well, it's not so much a privilege problem, but it's just like taking a step back and realizing like what draws certain people to climate activism. And one thing that I've talked to a lot of other people, so let's look at like race and class for now. So obviously the standard environmentalist is white middle class. You can't really escape from that. And talking to a lot of people who do fit that category and a lot of people who don't fit that category in the environmentalist movement, actually outside it, the thing I fear is that like people have a certain number of things that they can worry about. I think I read this somewhere as well. There's like people have a certain number of things they can worry about. If they're worrying about getting to the end of the week due to like, you know, financial issues, if they're worrying about how they're going to be looked at in the street due to, you know, ethnicity, like if they're worrying about any sort of like certain number of things, the world is outside of their scope. Do you know what I mean? The world's outside their scope. If they're worrying about like supporting their family, they don't like. I think someone said it's like, if you can't make it to the end of the week, who cares about 2050? Do you know what I mean? Who cares about these like long-term world like climate change trends when you can't make it to the end of the week? That's the general idea.
What is in store for Puria post Cambridge?
Post Cambridge.
Or post now, man. Like,
Post
you're gonna
now.
be active during Cambridge. Like, what's coming up for you essentially?
What's coming up for me? So I'm really happy at the start of this conversation when you said that you can have a conversation about me about anything, and then you mentioned politics as well, because there's a distinct lack of understanding for science and technology in the world of politics. Have you seen Mark Zuckerberg's audit from the Senate? Where the way
like, what is the internet? Essentially.
So you think about that, and then you think about the scale of the climate problem right now, and you got the same people talking about technology in the same way. So I've really been looking for places like in Cambridge at the moment which deal with like using science and engineering, and particularly what I want to go into next year, because like I said, engineering's general here, which is like machine learning and like data handling, how that can be used in public policy and governance. That's my next step. And this is like the thing that kicked off this 2 weeks that I keep coming back to, is that I really looked at myself and I was like, what do I like? Like it's time to stop like dropping things. What do I like? And I realized like I can't do a life of technical work. Politics is what I enjoy reading about, talking about. Like I enjoy discussing politics way more than I like in discussing engineering. But at the same time, in the classroom, I can't write essays for the life of me. I can't remember books. I can't remember dates. I can't remember that. What is that? I can do maths. I'm decent at like calculus.
Decent.
Decent.
Trinity College engineering.
I like my coding.
Do you code?
I try to, yeah.
I said, do you code?
I'm doing a degree in it, so I better code.
That's lit.
So I just thought I can do these in the classroom, but I'd enjoy my life to be more about like, you know, public policy governance. So that's really I've really tried to set myself off on that line of work.
Sick. You heard it here first, guys. 2 weeks can change your life.
Fully. It's not change your life maybe, but like it can like you need to sit down with yourself and like discuss.
You know what? On this topic, just because you mentioned sitting down by yourself, I was telling Saadadeen today, something that I've started to implement into my like daily routine is free writing. It's where I sit down for 5 minutes every morning and just kind of write whatever's on the top of my head. And it's just been really impactful, and I recommend everyone to do it, because there are things that you put at the back of your head that you never give time to, and it's just, for me, it's been the times when I'm most creative.
Yeah.
And we all need to be creative, you know what I mean, like to think of innovative solutions to change the world.
So one thing that I tried doing over summer as well was just like 10-minute meditation, and then at the end of it, when my mind's clear, doing something similar, but like sorting out my day after that, and just being like, how can I most creatively use my day? And it was only after that moment of silence that I could actually think of like what I wanted to do, and not what was just, you say off the top of your head. Obviously that's when you're in a creative state of mind, but when you're in that stressed state of mind, what's on the top of your head is like immediate needs, like deal with this. It was like calm down, sit down, even like 10 minutes, and then sort your day out, and just think like, what do I actually have to do today, sort of thing.
I think on that note, we spoke about free writing, meditation, and it links with what we spoke about at the start about dealing with grief, etc. I think that's a good place to bring it to an end, man.
Very wholesome conversation, to say the least.
Yeah, thank you so much, Puria,
Much
for coming
appreciated.
down,
Thank you
man.
for inviting me.
Like we said at the start, we do think long and hard about our guests, and yeah, man, you didn't disappoint, bro.
When you win your Nobel Peace Prize, just we'll have a part 2.
I remember you guys.
You give us a shout out when you're giving your award.
Bro. Yeah, thanks so much, man. Thank you, bro.